Imagine we're playing a game similar to charades. The game begins when I pretend to hand you an imaginary gift, and you have to guess, or rather react, to what I'm handing you. Once that's done, then you hand me a pretend gift, and I have to react to what you're handing me. The challenge with this game is that each person getting the gift has to, in some way, try to figure out what we're being handed. That can be especially difficult if we keep making the gift more and more elaborate and complicated. Not to mention, it can easily turn into a competition to see who can stump the other by giving more and more complicated gifts. In this game, the person receiving the gifts can do several things. They can just accept the gift, that is, go along with whatever is handed to them. That is, you take what you think you're being given. The problem with this is you no longer have any control or agency in the game. Your only role is to follow my lead and accept what you think you're being handed. And some gifts just aren't given with good intentions. Some gifts aren't helpful or beneficial. Anything you may wish to do or add in receiving the gift can only come once you accept that gift is given, and what you've been given might just be the problem. The second option is to reject the gift. To block the gift is a way of saying, no, I'm not going to play this game. Whether it's the purpose or not, this response ends the game. While it seems like a useful way out of a challenging or difficult situation, it's also a way of rejecting participation, rejecting sharing, rejecting intimacy. By ending the game, we end our interaction and involvement with one another. The assumption in this response to the game is competition. There can be only one winner. So to avoid being a loser, you just quit the game and refuse to participate. Those two options, accepting and blocking, seem common in the game of life, in social relationships, and in working together in an organization. Whether it's the Scouts, the Junior League, or the church, when we're interacting with one another, it can become a game of power and control, to see who can manage the engagement with a minimum of embarrassment and loss. Yet when we think of the long story of God's involvement with a people called to be God's people, we can imagine it similar to this game. But it's really a drama involving God and us as actors in a play with many acts. The key to remember is that we're in a specific act of the drama, participating in a game with God which isn't about winning or losing. King Ahaz of the southern kingdom of Judah is feeling anything but delight in this passage from Isaiah. His enemies are closing in, and people who he thought were his friends, the northern kingdom of Israel, for instance, turns on him and joins in with his enemies. Frankly, the future couldn't look worse for Ahaz and Judah. But God isn't done with Ahaz and Judah. God offers them a gift. But it doesn't quite look like the gift Ahaz wants in the moment. What Ahaz is looking for is a miracle in the form of armies at his disposal, or at least God to reach back into his bag of tricks and produce some fire and brimstone to smite his enemies. Instead, the miracle gift he's offered is a glimpse of a future where darkness becomes light and the burden of a yoke and the rod of the oppressor is broken. The demand of right now dissolves into an image of a future restored, and it's easy to imagine that Ahaz found that a somewhat underwhelming gift. But what might have gotten Ahaz's attention is the reference to the day of Midian. Early on in Israel's life in the Promised Land, Before all of their disagreements split them into two kingdoms, the Israelites were worshiping other gods. In that time, the Midianites rose up against the Israelites and harassed them, stealing their plantings and plundering their livestock. But Israel remembered themselves, and they cried out to God for help. What they got in response was a prophet to properly instruct them into faithfulness in God. They were told to trust in God and God alone. Then an angel of the Lord appeared under an oak tree and told a man named Gideon that the Lord was with him. To that angelic announcement, Gideon replied what all people, tired and angry and hopeless and frustrated, reply. Gideon said, "But sir, if the Lord is with us, then why has all of this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our ancestors recounted to us, saying, 'Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt?' But now the Lord has cast us off and given us into the hand of Midian." Ahaz could probably identify, and it would be easy for Ahaz to hear Isaiah's reference and expect to find a warrior like Gideon given for his salvation. But that would be to miss the gift. We often see what we want to see and hear what we want to hear. Perhaps rather than a warrior to conquer those we think should properly be conquered so we can live happily ever after, Isaiah wanted Ahaz to make the connection with Gideon as someone who trusted completely in God, even when things seemed to suggest that was a very foolish trust. Imagine that was the gift that was handed to you in this situation. Would it feel like a gift? If Ahaz is looking for something specific, something which solves his problem in this moment, is this sign, this gift, a gift to be received or blocked? Our second chances, third chances, each new day with each new moment and each new encounter to be understood as a chance for prosperity and peace? Does Ahaz, do we understand God's ability to do new things in ways we often lack the imagination to conceive as possible? There's a third option to this game of charades involving an imaginary present. Rather than merely accepting the gift or blocking the gift, one can over-accept the gift. The secret to this response comes from using your imagination. By over-accepting, you don't allow the person who gives the gift to hold all the power. Instead, you put the importance on the thing which is given. It's the gift that matters. No matter the intention or how outlandish it may seem, to receive the gift and transform it into something of your imagination and delight can be a source of joy and life. When our imagination challenges what we think of as given, then we're free to receive the gift. Rather than adapt to the way things are or the way it's always been, situations become opportunities for us to choose how we'll react and what we'll make of the situation. God continues to give gifts to us now as in the days of Ahaz. Our task is to discern how to receive the gift and allow it to become what it's intended to be, to produce delight and joy and life. To over-accept is to allow the story to go on in new and interesting ways. It's to engage and participate in how the story goes and to allow the delight and joy of the game to be our central focus. It allows room for initiative, identity, and humanity. It's up to us to find a use for the gift we're given. We're invited to worry less about what the gift is supposed to be and focus more on our efforts on what the gift can be. Our memory is the guide for remembering what God has done, and our imagination informs us of what God will do. When you hear this gift from Isaiah to Ahaz, I wonder what you hear in this message and what this gift can be for you. You're not Ahaz in 8th century BC Judah, and yet we still hear this message as something more than advice to a king in a difficult political situation. There's a message of hope given to us, and it's a message meant to invite us to see beyond our present needs, to open ourselves from the expectations which can blind us to the new thing God is doing in our midst. Epiphany is all about expanding the margins of who exactly belongs in the fullness of God's people. It invites us to include those who the rules tell us should be excluded, and it challenges us to assist God in allowing the light to pierce the darkness, to liberate people by seeing life and life with God as a gift. We, like God, can over-accept the gift, which multiplies and increases the joy of life, which is God's greatest gift to us.